Okay, since the last video, I've trimmed the veneer on the top so that it's flush with the substrate edge, and I used my my fine multi-master to do that. It's a rough cut, and I used a block plane, a low-angle block plane to do some trimming, and then my plywood block with a piece of stick-on sandpaper, 120 grit, to clean up the edge real smooth. Then I took my bent lamination that I'd made in an earlier episode, and this is the front bullnose, and took it on my 16-inch joiner and cleaned up one surface, and then using the 20-inch planer I cleaned up the other surface, and I have it just slightly oversized. It protrudes above and below just a hair, hard to even measure, less than a 64th of an inch, just enough so that I can get the glue up pretty close, such that I only have to use a plane to trim up the top and the bottom to get it nice and flush. It gives me a little wiggle room and some room to flush it up. And then, of course, I've got my cutoff that I used for a caul. I've raised up the panel onto two sawhorses, and then taken two pieces of 2x4 that I jointed and planed to be perfectly parallel flat edges, and put them on top of the sawhorses. And then on top of the 2x4s, I put 2 layers of the curly maple veneer just as a spacer, just to raise up this substrate slightly higher than the 2x4s. Now the lamination here will rest directly on the 2x4s. So the idea being that the lamination hangs down below the substrate just a hair. Okay, and that way I can get a little bit of clearance on both top and bottom. Alright, I'm mixing up some Unibond 800 using the usual precautions. I got cross flow ventilation, and I'm using the dark catalyst. I mixed up about 100 grams of resin and 10 grams of catalyst. I'll brush this on with a foam brush and try to get it so that I get good contact, but I don't want a whole lot of squeeze out, because the squeeze out's going to tend to fill the pores on the walnut veneer. I don't want that too much, so I've got to be real careful as to how much I put on there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get going with that. Well, to be quite frank, I forgot to turn my camera on while I was doing the clamp up, but I was very slow and meticulous, lots of clamps, and worked hard to make sure I got good contact everywhere. And now I'm just going to let that sit overnight, and then we'll be ready to trim and work on the other 3 sides. Okay, the front and back bullnose edging is installed. Now I'm going to cut off the excess and glue on the side edging. I'm using a Japanese style pull saw. I've marked where the cut needs to be. I'll make the cut just slightly proud, so that I can come back with a plane and just plane that up. What I do is I make my first cuts to mark where the cuts need to be, and to just carefully break through the first layer of wood to minimize the amount of splintering you might get when you saw it. Okay, that front cut is now a guide for the rest of the cutting. banding on the sides is going to be glued on the substrate, but also at the ends it's going to be glued to the end grain of the front and rear bullnose. So to give a little more strength there and help tie things together, I'm going to install a pair of dominoes in each corner as so, and that will basically give you a couple of small tenons at each corner to help tie things together. I'm using the Festool domino cutter. These little pieces of wood are called dominoes. This cuts a little slot in here. The first slot I'm going to cut 10 millimeters down from the top. I'll go around and do cuts on all places. That means on the edge banding itself and on the substrate. And then I'll readjust to 29 millimeters of height and do that round all over again so they get the lineup perfect. All the slots are cut. Now it's time to do the glue up. So I've spread the glue, and now I'm placing the pieces, the edge banding. And I'm using these little edge clamps just give me a little stabilization before I put the main clamps on here. Now, every job in studio furniture making presents new challenges, and this one's no exception. This is a long piece, 84 inches, and most of us don't carry 84-inch clamps in our shop. So for this job, I had to purchase some clamp extenders from Bessie, so I could take 2 K-body clamps and extend them to give me the full range of clamping that I need. These extenders you can purchase. I can't remember how much they cost. They're not extremely expensive, and it's a lot cheaper than buying a big long clamp. It allows you to use your existing clamps. I actually had to buy, as many clamps as I have, I actually had to buy 2 more 54-inch clamps as well. This is 6 extenders to be able to do this job. Come back and put some blocks on to help spread the pressure a little better. Okay, I'll go back and re-block these initial clamps to help spread the pressure a little better, but it feels like I got good overlap along the length. Should be in good shape. I wanted to film finishing one surface of the top, and I decided the top of the top was going to be way more exciting than filming the bottom. So I've already finished the bottom, and now I'm going to take you through how I'm going to go about finishing the top. First thing I need to do is take down this edging, become flush with the veneer. Now, this top is so big I just can't clamp it in place well enough to use a hand plane, which would normally be what you do to take down the surface. It just slides around too much. So what I've done is I've taken my flush cutting router bit with a bearing guide so that it will ride right along the veneer, and if I'm very careful keeping the base nice and flat against the outside of the edging, I can go ahead and trim this on down all the high spots so that then all I have to do is go into some sanding. Okay, so I've got the edges routed down so they're almost flush with the veneer. Now I'm going to start working my way up with different sandpapers, starting with P120, and try to get the edge nice and flush and get rid of any glue marks and get her nice, and work my way up to P320 with the Festool Rotex sander, and then a little hand sanding, and then I'll be ready to start the finishing process.